What is the latest here? We've got conflicting reports, one from the FT and then from Deutsche Bank themselves. What's going on?
Yeah, so I think the latest was from Deutsche Bank saying there has been no management discussion about a capital raise. Although when I last looked, that hadn't really moved the shares very much. I think what's transpiring is that as they look closer at one another and they look at the accounts, look at the balance sheet, there will probably be some form of capital raise that's required to make the deal work. And of course, this comes after Deutsche Bank has raised, tens of billions from shareholders over the last few years, money that's basically, pretty much disappeared. And that seems to be one of the red lines that investors have been pointing to in order for them, as to whether they will back the deal or not. And of course, raising that kind of money from external, from new investors could be difficult as well, because from what we hear, from what observers tell us, it's not obvious that this combination will address the two banks' weaknesses. So if you don't have a strong equity story, it becomes very difficult to bring in fresh money from the outside.
So, Elisa, we've spent, a couple of years now talking about the potential for this merger, maybe even longer than that. We've seen a series of headlines about it. It's intensified in the last couple of months, but we've talked almost exclusively about the strategic rationale for this to happen. What you and I have struggled to get details on is how the deal will be structured, who's going to pay what, and where the funding comes from. Is it any clearer?
It isn't yet, but I think they've been in talks for about 10 days now. The chairman yesterday of Deutsche Bank pledged to come through with a decision on whether to proceed or not before the first quarter earnings. So I think we're getting closer, and because, as you say, this is a deal that they've looked at closely. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I think there'll have to be a pretty clearly spelled out decision as to whether they're going to go ahead or not at this point.